All right, hey everybody, welcome to IACommand. This is TVboy, and I have a very special guest on the channel today. Thank you for joining us, Ryan Janway. How you doing?
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's great to have you back. We had you on the channel for the Nova Open finals. You were the champion of that one back before all this happened.
Right, things were a lot different back then, yeah.
Well, the game was kind of still was on its way out, but now it's on its way back in with I think with IACP. So
Yeah,
we've got you on the channel here because we just had an IACP Season 3 tournament. It's actually still technically underway, but you just won your top four matchup against Derek, so congratulations on that. And when I saw your name on the tournament list, I was actually really excited to see a veteran, a tournament veteran. You've won some tournaments, you've done pretty well in the past. So I'm excited to talk to you and get your thoughts here on the tournament and how it went and just what you saw. So do you want to start off just telling us about your list that you ran? Or do you want to talk
yeah, sure, yeah.
anything you want to talk about?
Yeah. First of all, yeah, I would like to say thanks to the IACP committee for keeping everything going. You guys have really been putting a lot of effort into it, and I really like this tournament that you guys set up. It was a great alternative to the playtesting leagues, and especially during the situation we're all in right now with the global pandemic. It's nice to have a tournament like this to spend a day on. So yeah, it was a real pleasure to play. I haven't played a ton in the season 3 play testing, but I've kind of followed the changes and the updates, through the website and the Slack as they've been coming out. So I've had some list building ideas, floating around for things that I thought looked interesting. Um, so a while back when IACP was getting started, I was interested in trying a force user list early on when Diala was one of the first early figures that was really getting a nice rework. And I remember I was sort of tinkering with a list similar to what I ran in the season 3 event. I had 3 force users in there. It was like Diala, Ahsoka, Ezra, and then I was using Sabine, and then the typical Rebel Care package stuff with I had Hera, Gideon, and 3PO. And it was a fine list. It's still probably a viable one. Those are all solid figures. But I really was looking for a way to lean into the force user trait more and really kind of embrace that as a list. So the list I ended up running in the event today was similar to what I mentioned. I had Diala, Ahsoka, Ezra. I brought Kanan instead of Sabine. And then my support, I had the new season 3 Yoda. I had R2D2, C3PO, and then I brought upgrades in Doubt, Balance of the Force, and Heroic Effort. So 7 activations, 5 force users in there, which is a lot. That's not easy to pack that many in a list usually. And no Gideon, which it was fun to try it out. And I feel like Yoda is an interesting piece. I feel like he works in this list really, really well.
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, really cool list, and I kind of wanted to talk about your experience with Yoda, especially because he's a figure that's brand new in season 3, but he's also a figure that we recently revamped for the end part of season 3, and we put a lot of work, especially me and Derek, but a lot of the committee members put a lot of work into figuring out how to make Yoda better and more attractive for competitive play than when he first came out. And the force deflection was a big part of that. and I just kind of want to get your impression of how was Yoda, how was he to play during the tournament and in like a
Sure.
competitive setting.
Yeah, yeah. Just kind of pulling up his card here to go down his abilities. I know you guys had kind of mentioned the idea of originally introducing him at cost 5, and then as you know, with some feedback, bumping him down to a 4. Which, yeah, I think having him at that cost 4 slot is really good. I really like that. It puts him one more than Gideon, same cost as a Hera. I feel like I like that cost. And then I think the abilities that he brings on his card are all really really interesting. They take some finesse, I think, to make work. So just kind of going down the card, the calming presence ability, which says a friendly rebel can remove a harmful condition and suffer a strain once per round at the start of their activation. That's one of those abilities that you might not use it for several games, but then once in a while, one of your melee, force users is stunned, and all of a sudden you can drop that stun, and it's amazing. What I actually did in my command card list as a result of this ability is I ended up removing Heart of Freedom, which is a great card.
Yeah.
And is kind of a staple in a lot of Rebel lists. It's just so good. 2 movement points, removing a condition, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Yoda kind of gives you that ability on demand whenever you need it. It doesn't have the movement points, which is big, but freeing up a 2-cost card in your deck it's an option. We can still get that effect. So like that ability. I think Wisdom is super interesting. It's kind of like the Heroic Effort, card mill ability, except Yoda just gets to do it during his turn.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I looked at that ability, the more I started thinking about how you could maybe get away from the usual Rebel method of card draw.
Mm-hmm.
Which everybody's kind of been doing for a long time. You bring a leader or 2. Usually you've got Gideon in there. You've got planning. You're trying to draw cards that way. So with Yoda's Wisdom, I saw that as an opportunity where you could still go through your deck, but without having to rely on some of those other, card draw things. So I really like that. As a result, I didn't bring any of those card draw command cards. Didn't bring planning. Didn't bring officers training, that sort of thing. The do or do not ability, which is an action to focus up a rebel force user within 4 spaces. I mean, that's great. It's that largely right there is what allows you to substitute Yoda instead of a Gideon. You're getting the focus. It's limited to rebel force users, but that was kind of what I was building out anyway. So and within range 4 is Yoda's always going to be moving 3, and reaching range 4 is not too difficult for him to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then force deflection is super cool. I really like that ability. It's a lot of fun. The ability to bounce the damage back, as opposed to the Jedi Luke version,
Mm-hmm.
which is just pinging that 1 damage every time an attack happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is damage based on number of dice rolled once per round. I think it creates some really interesting strategy there when you're able to kind of box up figures around Yoda, the opponent's wanting to come in and attack someone next to Yoda, but they've got to consider that free damage coming right back at them, So I really like that, and I like another thing I really appreciate about Yoda is that he's a support figure that, he's not like Gideon or Jabba, where you largely are just going to leave those guys in the deployment zone, and they're going to do their effects from way in the back. Yoda has to be he has to be sort of in the middle. You have to position him really well, to get the most out of him. And you kind of have to put him out there and risk him a little bit. Risk the opponent attacking him. So I just really like the total package there. Bringing Yoda with the list I brought, the 4 other Force users, and considering like the focus game, right? Because some of those Force users really want to be focused. Some of them already get focused or don't need it as much, So Diala auto focuses herself,
Right.
so you don't have to worry about focusing her. Ezra really wants to be focused, and I think Ahsoka equally wants to be focused, especially in this kind of a list. So most of the time, that would be my focus targets, trying to get Ezra and Ahsoka focused early. If I was able to get Kanan focused, that's great. Kanan's the slowest one, takes him a little while to get in the fight. He's not making an attack until round 2 or 3 usually. But so I had between Yoda and 3PO 2 focus generators, and largely 2 focus targets that I'm trying to put out there. So yeah, all in all, I got to say, I looked at sort of the evolution of Yoda in season 3 as some of the changes were made, and I really like where he's ended up now. It's not you're not going to get a ton of value, just by dropping him in your deployment zone and leaving him there. You really have to, you kind of have to work for it with him. You know what I mean? You've got to have good positioning just to get the most out of him.
Yeah. It makes me really happy to hear you say all that about Yoda, because that's like the exact same conversations we were having in the committee as we were making him.
Nice.
We wanted all that to be true. We wanted it to be positioning based. We wanted it to be also thematic to Yoda, where he's a defensive figure that protects other figures, and
Right.
wanted him to be generating that value and feeling like he's a 4-point figure, but he really rewards you for playing Force users. But then even if all your Force users are dead, you still can get value out of him by protecting himself and like your other support figures from getting picked off with that damage bouncing back ability. So yeah, really happy to hear you saying all that about Yoda. So let's see. And then I wanted to comment. So you had 3PO in your list instead of Gideon. And well, actually, let me roll back just real quick. So one last thing I want to say about Yoda is that a little bit of statistics here from the tournament. There were actually 4 Yodas in the tournament in the Swiss, including yourself. And every Yoda player actually had a different win-loss result record during the tournament. So yourself, you were 3-1 in Swiss. We had a 2-2 player, 2 wins, 2 losses, who was playing Yoda, and then a 1-3 and an 0-4 Yoda. So to me, just looking at that, it makes me feel like, Yoda's not getting 2 wins for everybody that played him, but the players that are playing him well and playing the positioning game are getting a lot of value out of him. And that makes me feel like we did a good job. And I also want to credit the Yoda design 3.2 to the incoming class of the committee. We just added a bunch of people, myself included, and those people brought in a ton of great ideas and a lot of energy and work and creativity that I think made this Yoda really possible. So credit to the new class for the committee and the people that have stayed on from the original one, like Jake and Chris. They've been really great in helping us, and I feel like the committee is firing on all cylinders now since 3.2.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's a big accomplishment when you think about it, to introduce a brand new character, brand new figure to the game that is an iconic character, and really nail the theme, and then also in a faction that's probably got the most competition for those cheap support figures, to be able to introduce a new figure that legitimately has a place and can compete with other figures like a Gideon or a Hera, which are great figures in their own right. But I've been really impressed with them. I do think the more Force users you have, the more value you're going to get from Yoda.
Yeah. And he really combines well, in my experience, with Jedi Luke, and I think he's gonna help bring Jedi Luke back into the meta without us having to like keep tweaking him, because he synergizes with the Jedi Luke's ability, right? So
Sure.
Excited for that. And also, like, it just feels good, right, when your opponent takes a big attack at you that normally, like, you feel like you wouldn't be able to do anything about it because he's too far away. But now he's going to take a bunch of damage when he does that. And I found that to be very satisfying when I play it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, he's a fun figure.
So let's talk about your command cards. I know you still have your final game to go, so if you don't want to talk about your command deck in detail, that's fine, although you did a little bit. What was your experience with the command cards that you had available? And are you like me in that when I build command cards for IACP now, I have a really hard time making cuts because there's just so many good options now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had a fun time building the command deck on this list. I mean, it's a lot of things that you would probably expect in there. And I think, I think the command card lists have been posted on the Tabletop TO site, so it's somewhat public info out there already. So I guess I'll talk about Force user cards that I brought first. I ended up bringing 4 Force user cards and then 1 sort of pseudo Force user card. So the 4 that I brought, Knowledge and Defense, which if you watch my top 4 game from earlier today with Derek, I would say I largely won that game based on Knowledge and Defense. For those who don't know, it costs 2 points, and it says it says Rebel Force user, or is it any Force user?
It's Rebel Force users only.
Rebel Force user, yeah. So it's similar to like a Brace for Impact or a Stealth Tactics. It says use when an attack targeting you is declared. You can add a black or a white defense dice, which is a great ability. But then the thing that puts it over the top is that it says it has a surge ability. It says you may redraw this card from your discard pile when a Force user. Is that right? Does a Force user have to surge?
Yeah, it's a surge. It costs a surge when a Force user is attacking, and then you can redraw it from the discard pile.
Yeah, right, exactly. So that card, if you draw it early, if you're in my top 4 game with Derek, I was able to play it. I must have played it 4 or 5 times and kept cycling it back, and just adding that many extra defense dice is crazy good. I also brought one of the new IACP cards, Get Behind Me, the Guardian Rebel Force user card.
Yep,
I think that's
season 3.
Yeah, I think that's a super fun card. I really like that design. I think it's really thematic.
That was Chris Emmons' baby. He
nice.
That one. Yep.
I think it's great. I like it a lot. I was able to play it a couple times in the game so far, and it's just got some really interesting effects that you can do with the Force users you have available, and I like the fact that it, in a little bit similar to On the Lam, it lets you get a little extra movement out, which can help your positioning for the future. I think that card is really fun. I brought Force Surge because it's just so good.
Nice. Yes, Force Surge is underrated. Force users, you need to get on Force Surge because that card is seriously good.
Right, and with 5 Force users in my list, that one's a no-brainer. Force Surge, and then my last Force user card was Force Push, which I really like. Even though I've got Diala in there with free Force Push, having that card, more ability to move figures around for other Force users to do it. It's great. And then the 5th card, that's kind of a pseudo card that I mentioned, I think this you could play around with this. It's a 1 point card. It's Ezra's card, learn by example.
Oh, wow.
So I think there's some options where you could bring different stuff, but the way I was looking at it is got 5 force users. I'm bringing 4 really strong force user command cards.
Yeah.
Giving Ezra the ability to copy any one of those 4, in addition to, the off chance that my opponent might have force user command cards in their discard pile, and I might be able to copy, dark energy or something like that. But giving Ezra the ability to copy knowledge and defense when it's in the discard pile, get an extra dice. Giving Ezra the ability to copy get behind me. Situational, but there's times when you might want to do that, especially if you can combine that with on the lam. That could be a big deal.
I hadn't even thought of that. That's actually pretty good.
Yeah. Really, I think the one that puts it over the top is letting Ezra copy Force Surge.
Yeah.
Being able to play Force Surge twice in a game is pretty significant.
You can't play it in the same activation. Just
right. So you can't do it immediately and then copy it right away. But having someone else, another Force user, do Force Surge, and then Ezra later able to copy that. I was able to do that exact thing in my game against Isaac. And I definitely think it was a bit of a surprise factor. It was Kanan was able to attack Emperor Palpatine, deal a bunch of damage. Ezra was able to run up and attack him again, and he still had 1 or 2 health left, and so I was able to play learn by example, copy a Force Surge, and finish off Palpatine in a pretty unexpected way.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Were you playing Force Rush, the 0 point for 2 movement?
No, I was not. I definitely had it in there. Like you said, some of these tough command card choices. Originally, I had it in because it's a really good card. And I'm also running 2 copies of Pummel in my list.
Yeah.
Because I've got 4 Jedi, 4 lightsabers. So Force Rush is great. What I ended up doing was I had 1 point in my deployment deck that I was playing around with, and I pretty much had my command list built. I had Force Rush in there, and as I was looking at my deployment options and my upgrades, I kind of saw this option where I could bring Balance of the Force, which says you can bring 18 points worth of command cards instead of 15 points.
I find myself putting that card in my Rebel list a lot now.
Right. So essentially, I had my list built, and I was able to put Balance of the Force upgrade in there, and I was able to trade Force Rush for On the Lam.
Okay, yeah, because that's what usually happens when you play Balance is you have to cut some 0 cost cards, so that makes sense.
Yeah. And I originally I didn't have On the Lam in there because I was just kind of playing around with, well, maybe I could get away without having it, and there's so many other good cards that cost a lot. But in the end, I really liked having a couple different defensive options, and yeah, dropping Force Rush, especially when so many of those guys, so many of the Force users have good movement options already.
That's true.
Kanan's really the one who needs Force Rush the most.
Yeah.
Ezra gets Brash, Diallo speed 5 with the Force Throw. Ahsoka's got all the movement she could ever want, So I felt like I was able to get by without Force Rush in there. And then the rest of the stuff I brought was kind of things you would expect. I definitely have Dying Lunge in there because, again, 4 Jedi makes sense. So, yeah, like you said, though, that the command deck was definitely a challenge, but I feel pretty good about where I ended up with it.
I liked how you played. I watched your top 4 game, and I liked how you combined Yoda's Deflect with Dying Lunge. That was really cool for me to see that interaction. You wouldn't have gotten the kill if it hadn't been for Yoda adding the 3 damage onto the attack.
Right, and I had to kind of wait because, so Yoda was set up next to Kanan, and Derek had a couple jet troopers coming in to trying to finish off Kanan. And so it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, you have to be careful and you really have to strategize when to use that ability, because it's like, if I do Yoda's force deflection against the first attack that comes in, it might just be 3 damage against the sentry droid that was at full health. And
Yeah.
but yeah, I was able, I was watching for that, and I knew he had I knew he was going to have one coming in towards the end, so I was looking for that ability. I figured Kanan probably can't one-shot a full health jet trooper, but combine it with Yoda's ability. Yeah, and it worked.
Yeah,
so
that was awesome. I really liked seeing that during that game. So what about, did you look at Yoda's command card? I'd like to hear what you think about that.
You'll have to refresh me on it. I think I looked at it. Let me see if I can pull it up really quick.
Yeah, I can tell it while you're looking it up. But it's 2 points. You use it while a friendly force user within 4 spaces is attacking or defending, and it basically gives them Ezra's ability to change any die to any side. But with the caveat that if you change it to a dodge, it turns into 2 blocks and an evade.
Right.
So
right.
First, hear if you thought about including that, and just what you think of that card.
Yeah. I think I did look at it. I think that's definitely a powerful ability because it lets you change attack or defense dice, right?
Yep.
Probably the biggest reason that I didn't include a card like that is running Kanan. And I was one of those people that played Spectre Cell when it was in its heyday, and I absolutely loved Kanan's defensive reroll, and that was a big part of why I wanted to play him in this list. I think when you can keep your positioning tight and have Kanan giving those free rerolls on defense, it's just so strong. So when I look at Yoda's card here, on offense, if you're turning a dice on offense, a lot of times, depending on the situation, you're probably increasing your damage output by about 2 points, maybe 3 points, just depending on if you really need a couple surges or that extra surge to get you there. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Which is good. Giving that extra 2 or 3 points of damage is great, and sometimes it's going to give you the particular surge ability you really need or the results that are just right.
Yeah,
but
Pierce 3.
Yeah, exactly. On average, I kind of looked at it and thought, okay, offense, you're probably looking at +2, end result, maybe +3. And then on defense, with Kanan giving those defensive rerolls and having that same ability, converting the dodge, which is also true for Diala, I just kind of thought, and the fact that it costs 2 points, I was really trying to stack my deck with some other tools, I guess. I think it's an interesting card, but I felt like I had options to rerolls and similar effects in there already. Not only Kanan's defense rerolls, but Ahsoka's Twin Saber ability giving rerolls, and then Ezra's, reroll and dice turn ability. So, if you drop Yoda in with Jedi Luke, and then you've got that card, that could really be really nice for him.
Yeah, because Luke can really underperform with his rerolls. I had actually suggested taking out the dodge conversion on that card just because I felt like it would be like a premium card to give force users like an on the lam without all the movement and with a positioning requirement.
Sure.
But I think after watching your game and seeing how Knowledge Defense did, I think I'm pretty happy that the other committee members talked me down off of that idea. So
yeah.
So glad I kept it like that.
I think that's probably good. It's one of those cards, like a lot of character-specific cards. Situational can be very powerful. I like that Yoda, already has the built-in mill effect, where if that card comes up and it just doesn't seem like you're in good position to take advantage of it, you could mill it away for later or something.
Yeah. So let's move along because I'm worried the Zoom call might kick us off here shortly. Was there any moments that stuck out, or any cards or figures that stuck out to you that you want to talk about for IACP, or that you saw during the tournament?
Yeah, let's see. I played one of the figures that I was looking at recently when I was considering what list to take. I really like the look of the new Royal Guards in the Imperial faction. I think they seem like a lot of fun. Those are really interesting figures. Isaac put together a really interesting list. I played against him. He had a lot of synergy, a lot of tricks going on between Royal Guards, the Royal Guard champion, and then Emperor Palpatine.
Yeah, he was using the Ugnaught in his list of Temporary Alliance, and then he would use Palpatine to kill the Ugnaught to focus the Royal Guards and free attack with the champion. And that's a combo that we knew about pretty early, and that we tested a lot. I tested a lot. And it was good, but it wasn't like, when we played it against really strong lists, it didn't feel like it was outmatching them at all. It felt like there was still, it just helped them hit a little bit harder, and they still had to get in close to get attacked.
Without having forced push and Diala's forced throw in my list, those things really helped me sort of counter the positioning game that Isaac was setting up. With all those things. So those gave me some options to try to counter that.
Nice.
I played 2 games against Boba Fett. One in an Imperial list with Boba Fett and double jet troopers, which that was my one loss of the day yesterday, and then one game against Boba Fett just in a more typical Scum Hunter, a set of weak ways, Greedo, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I think Boba Fett is just, he's such an interesting figure. I definitely need more games against him. It's hard to say. He's got so many options, right? And sometimes it all comes together for him, and he really can just wreck your day. His defense is interesting because it puts him in that category almost like Darth Vader, where there's just sort of wide categories of figures, wide groups of figures that almost just can't damage him.
Yep.
Or when they attack him, they're maybe going to get 1 or 2 points into him, his abilities to dive in, deal a lot of damage, and then retreat, in some ways a little bit like IG-88 can do, where he can bomb in, deal a bunch of damage, and then has a lot of movement to pull back and make it hard to get him. Those things are interesting, and I need some more games against him for sure.
Good stuff.
He's a powerful figure. Yeah,
we had to nerf him again for 3.2, taking off that stun off of his wrist cord.
Right. That was one that kind of caught me by surprise in playing against him, was noticing that his wrist cord moves the figure 3 spaces, where a lot of the other move another figure abilities move them 2 spaces, like a forced throw, forced push.
That was templated based on Shyla's whip.
Okay, because hers also moves 3.
Yeah, that's what I was told. I didn't design. I wasn't part of designing the design process for the new Boba, but we helped tweak him going into 3.2. So. Yeah.
I think he's a fun figure though, and I like the work that's been done on him so far. I'm trying to think of what else. And then playing in the game today against Derek with the Hoth tank and the Imperial retrofitting. I feel like he was able to make good use of that tank, which is tough to do. Massive figures are always such a challenge to make work and get just right. And I think massive figures are always going to be sort of situational. Sometimes they're going to perform really well. Sometimes, just by the nature of them, it's going to be they're going to have a hard time sometimes. But I like Imperial retrofitting. I think that's a good step at helping those figures out.
Yeah, Derek's been really happy with that list. He talks about it a lot. He's been really happy with he's really liking the tank. I think retrofitting makes actually massive figures in Imperial list actually quite strong. There's a lot of tricks you can do with, they're very hard to kill, especially the ones like ATSD and Weiss with double black die.
Yeah.
And with like extra block power tokens. And then they're very good at blocking line of sight to figures like Vader, so that you can kind of force your opponent to have to shoot at the big massive tank instead of going after the other figures. So I think Imperial massive figures are actually are actually rising up in my power ranking as far as
nice.
So
nice. Another one of the new, I think, season 3 cards that I did see. I can't quite remember the name of it. It's one of the new Guardian. I think it's maybe it's Iron Will.
Yeah, Iron Will.
Yeah. Isaac was playing that card in his Imperial Royal Guard Palpatine list, and I think he threw that out against me. I think he had killed my Ahsoka, and I was doing a dying lunge back at his Royal Guard that had done the attack, and I might have even thrown Wild Attack onto it to try to get some extra damage out of Ahsoka, and he played that card. I think the attack would have done 6 damage to the guard, but yep. The card says you only take a max of 3. He was able to save the block token that he had on the guard. He didn't need to spend it since the damage is going to be capped at 3. So that was an interesting one. It felt like a good use of the card, very sort of thematic, and it kind of had an interesting tempo effect there.
Yeah, we've been pretty happy with that as a Apex 3-point Guardian card. That was because Soften the Blow, the former iteration was just not good for 3 points, and so the committee reworked that format of let's just let Guardians use it on themselves, and then Patrick, aka Wintermute, actually submitted the actual effect of cap the damage at 3, and we really liked it because it felt a lot different from something like On the Lam, because it can have that same kind of like effect where it completely hoses an attack, but it's not like if you have a 2-point or 2 health or 3 health Guardian sitting there, you don't have to worry about Iron Will. It's not going to save him from dying the way that On the Lam would. So, and it really hurts a lot more against like big attacks and like dumping a bunch of command cards into an attack.
Yeah.
So
right, exactly. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that was a fun card to see.
Yeah. So, did you have a chance to watch the live stream replay from the actual Swiss? I know it was just yesterday, so I don't.
The streams.
Oh, I might be losing you here.
The Swiss rounds.
Yeah, from Saturday.
Yeah, I definitely want to see some of those games.
Okay.
And I appreciate the Built on Hope podcast folks for providing the stream commentary. They do a great job.
Yeah, it's been really great having them. It really frees me up because I can't devote an entire day, especially a weekend, to covering those. So having them,
Sure.
It wouldn't be possible without them. using the channel to commentate. So they've been a great help. So
Yeah.
did you see any of the season 4 spoilers we put up? We've spoiled.
I did take a look earlier. I was really excited to see Bosk in there. And I'm trying to remember what was the first
Loku.
Loku, yeah. He's looking great. And Bosk, I am really excited about Bosk. Bosk is one that I have always kind of wanted to see, more playable. He's just a fun character.
Yeah.
So I like that design. I like the abilities that you guys had worked in there. I'm trying to see if I can pull up that spoiler picture. But I know you had the recover 2 damage, Hunter Brawler, and then that I like the way you guys had reworked indiscriminate fire.
Yeah, I like that one. That one was fun to work on. That was one of the earliest designs when I submitted that one, and we tested that one pretty early on, and it was fun because we found it averaged about 2, even if you focused him, like 2 surges less. But then we realized, well, you can do tools and focused, and then use his card and add a yellow.
Oh, right.
It goes pretty crazy when you can hit every figure within 2, the way like Dracata does with shrapnel.
Just splash out all this strain, yeah.
Yeah, and so that's why we ended up adding that max 2, because we found when he did his average, when you added all those cards, usually you average about 2 surges.
Okay.
It was good and it was fine and it was pretty devastating, but it wasn't like you couldn't recover. It just got nuts when you're doing like 5 strain to 4 figures.
Yeah, I like his built-in abilities. I like the block with a black dice and then the 2 damage. And then his accuracy is interesting, right? Because you've got 2 built in, and on a normal attack, your minimum range is range 3.
Yep.
So right, if he's not focused, you really have to play him. He's a ranged attacker, but he's got to be pretty close. For a lot, even when he's focused, you're only guaranteed to hit range 4.
So he's focused. Yeah, he can't range 4.
Yeah.
We actually didn't need to change that much on Bosk from his original card. So he had regenerate already. He had the +2. Like the attack is the same. He has the exact same attack as his original FFG card. We gave him 1 extra health, I think, because I think he has 10 health.
Okay.
And we found that was just a little squishy, especially with a white plus a block, that he would often not get to use regenerate. He would just die on turn.
Yeah.
So we gave him 1 extra. I actually started him off at 13 health, and then everyone's like, "You're crazy. This is impossible to kill." I was like, "All right." So we went down to 11, and then we found the white die also was too swingy, because if he dodged a bunch, it was impossible to kill him, and he would just recover really.
And regenerating, yeah.
We swapped that out for the black just for the more consistent tankiness but you can damage him if you've got a good attack. So.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It's a good. He looks interesting. I'll be interested to see how he fits in. Everybody kind of has concerns about hunters, right? But it'll be interesting to see how he fits in kind of that hunter salad kind of list, or how he works paired with other strong scum figures.
We're really excited for how he's going to work with like brawler lists more so, and under duress. We found that his range was pretty limiting in like a old school hunter sniper list, which just wants to hide near the deployment zone and take long range shots. He's not really great for that.
Right.
Give him a bunch of brawler command cards like Parting Blow and stuff like that. He actually does a lot. He can do some work when he gets in close.
Interesting. Yeah, and that makes sense, because seems like you would probably want other figures with Bosk that are going to be. You don't want Bosk to be your only short range guy out there by himself, right? You probably want some other brawler type figures that that are going to be on the front lines, where your opponent has to make a tough choice between shooting Bosk or someone else in their face.
Yep. But then that makes the fun tension in our games where you've got some close range figures in the mix, and now Bosk has to decide, is he going to use indiscriminate fire and hit his own guys, and hit his own guys that are already in the melee.
Yeah.
And that was really fun, having to make choices like that with lists like that. So
nice.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So we're excited.
Yeah. And then I think Loku looks like a nice improvement from his original version. Clearly, just wasn't getting a lot of play. What was his original cost? Was he cost 4?
He was 4. So we wanted to have another good 5-point figure in Rebels, because we felt like they were kind of lacking like a generic 5-point figure that would be good in kind of any list.
Yeah.
Like Jin was always go to Jin, because Jin's the only really good 5-point figure that can actually attack. So that's where we want Loku to be at.
And did you guys add the hunter trait to him?
Yeah. So we wanted him to be good, but we didn't want him to just be always good without having to put anything onto him. So giving him the hunter trait gave him an opportunity, if you wanted to spend command cards from your hand to buff up his attack. But you'll notice he only has 2 attack dice, so he's not super great. You really have to be putting resources into him if you want him to be great, unless you can outplay your opponent and get shots on whatever figure you've targeted at the beginning of the game, which creates this fun like cat and mouse game between you and your opponent, where it's like they're trying to keep it away from Loku, and Loku's trying to get a beat on him but not be exposed, because he only has 8 health, so you can't take a bunch of shots. So it's really fun.
That is fun. Okay, right. So set your sights is just once at the start of the mission. You're just putting 1 recon token out. It's got to go on a unique figure.
Yeah, he's got a mission at the start of the game, and if he kills that figure, then he's done. He doesn't get any more benefits on anybody else.
Yeah. That does seem like a fun ability there. I like that. And you got a lot of options with the spy trait and the hunter trait in Rebels. Seems interesting.
I wanted to put Trooper on him too, but the committee said no.
I could see him working with the big hunters you already have, like the Rangers and Sabine. You could lean into hunter stuff that way. Spies, Ahsoka is a possibility. Maybe even Gerard.
He works really well with the traits as kind of like a glue piece that kind of rounds out your list if you're trying to make a hunter list with Biv, like Biv and Sabine, or Rangers, or if you want another spy.
Right, and a fairly cheap one. No, very cool. And so it seems like you guys are really working your way through like the Return to Hoth era. So I wonder if you can, I know you've put out a couple teasers this weekend, but I wonder if you can, I know one of your favorite figures, can we expect to see anything with Davith?
I can't talk about really anything more, because we still got a ways to go before the official release.
Sure.
But I think people who are hoping for old figures to come back from like the middle expansions that were pre-Jabba, like Hoth, Bespin Gambit, I think people are going to be pretty happy with what we've done. We certainly didn't use everything we could for this season, so there'll still be more for season 5.
Nice.
We'll get to it. But yeah, I'm excited for season 4. And there's a lot of stuff that people want to see from the old sets that are coming in season 4. We've also got some brand new figures coming in season 4 as well. So
very cool.
People who want new stuff are going to be happy. I think people who want to see the old stuff brought back and see play either again or for the first time in their Imperial Assault lifetime are going to be really excited for what comes out.
Nice. That's great.
So is there anything else, Ryan, you want to talk about?
No, I think that kind of covers it for me. Yeah, one of the things that I really recognized off of playing in the event this weekend was just, it's really kind of, I really appreciate the fact that IACP allows for, some creativity back into the game. We all kind of know where the standard version of the game is with FFG. If you've been playing that standard version, standard meta. Things just haven't changed in a long time, you know, and it it feels like there's not that. It feels hard to really have a sense of creativity and experimentation in standard meta, Imperial Assault right now. So IACP is great for that. It feels like you've got a lot of fun options to work with, a lot of things to try out and experiment with, and that was always has always been a favorite part of the game for me, is that list building, the experimentation, um, trying different things, different combinations together. So definitely been enjoying that aspect.
That's awesome. And yeah, I felt the same way. Like, I feel like after Spectre Cell got nerfed, like the meta opened up a little bit, but I feel like after Homeworlds, the worlds replacement we did, like it feels like the FFG meta has settled and was solved. And with
Yeah,
ICP, it's like it feels like there's like 10 times more options you can experiment with and do well with.
yeah,
So that's great
yeah,
to
and
hear, Ryan.
and it's fun to have the rest of the player community also experimenting. You know what I mean? Because sometimes if you're experimenting and everyone else is running top of the meta, it is what it is. But yeah, it's fun to have the community also engaging in that creativity. So
It'll be interesting to see what happens when like things do kind of settle down in ICP and maybe people start going back to like the old favorites from the original of what, maybe people start going back to Vader and Vader Palpatron or Weak Ways, and then how do those do against, what we've been concocting, and see where things kind of shake out once people have kind of explored all the corners of the meta. So it'll be really
yeah, definitely, and I appreciate the map rotations that you guys have been doing as well. It was a fun blast from the past to play the ISB headquarters map. That was one when I first got into Imperial Assault almost 3 years ago or so now. That was one of the first like maps that was one. I remember that one well. It was like one of the first that had rotated in once I had gotten into the game, so it was fun to go back and play those missions again.
Yeah, and that's something we're definitely looking at. It's been a bit of a challenge with the maps too, because a lot of those old tournament maps from before Jabba's realm, they don't really work anymore with the way lists work now. So
Yeah, there's just a wide range of those missions are kind of all over the place, right?
yeah, like training ground, you got two deployment zones right next to each other in this flimsy door, and Vader's just like, yeah, that door is not an issue for me. I'm gonna walk into your deployment zone round one. So
Right, and they can't run away fast enough. Yeah.
yeah, they can't get out of that deployment zone fast enough. So definitely been interesting, and we're still working on the next map rotation, but I'm excited for to get to play on new maps and old maps. So
Yeah, that's one of the best parts of the game, is having that rotation of different maps for sure.
yep. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for coming on and talking about ICP and the tournament. Really appreciate you coming on. Appreciate you doing that for us and giving us your insights as a non-committee competitive player playing in IACP. It really helps to get that feedback from you.
Yeah, glad to do it.
All right, thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you next time.